Hey everybody, Mr. Bucko here with a couple of examples from your Chapter 11 practice test for geometry. I'm not going to do all the problems. I'm just going to do a couple, and the reason why is because there are only three things that you need to know how to do for this test. Those three things are finding the midpoint, finding the distance, and knowing the equation for a circle. So let's do a couple of these problems because a lot of them are the same. So the first one that I have on the screen is finding the midpoint of the line segment with endpoints -2, 8, and -4, -9. So if I'm going to find the midpoint, I need the midpoint formula. And the midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And I'm given these coordinates. I'm given an x and I'm given a y. And I'm given another x with another y. And they're right here. Here's an x and a y and an x and a y. So I'm going to take the x values, add them, and divide them by 2. -2 plus -4 divided by 2, and then 8 plus -9 divided by 2. And then I'm just going to do the arithmetic. -2 plus -4 is -6. 8 plus -9 is -1. So by doing that arithmetic, I get -6 over 2 and -1 over 2. Out of these two, I can simplify -6 over 2 because -6 over 2 is -3. And the -1 over 2 I just leave as -1/2 because -1/2 is not an integer, it's just 0.5. If you want to put 0.5, that's fine, but -1/2 works just as well. So the midpoint of the line segment connecting these 2 points is -3, -1/2. Finding the distance between 2 points. Now we're finding how far away these 2 points are from each other, and if we're going to find out how far they are from each other, we are going to use the distance formula, and this is the distance formula. It looks a little bit different than the midpoint formula because we're finding something different. We're not finding the middle point between these 2 points. We're finding how far are these 2 points away from each other. So we're going to take the x values and take their difference and square it. We're going to take the y values, take their difference, and square it. And we have the x and a y and an x and a y. So all I'm going to do is take these values here and plug them into the formula. And by doing that, we get -8, the difference of the x values, -8 minus 2, and then 8 minus -8. The difference of the x values, and then the difference of the y values. I'm just plugging those into the formula. I didn't do anything else except for replace the x1 with an 8, the x2 with a 2, the y1 with an 8, and the y2 with a -8. And then I'm just going to do the arithmetic. -8 minus 2 is -10. 8 minus -8 is 16. And now I have to square each of these. -10 squared means -10 times -10, which is 100, and 16 squared is 256. So now I have 100 plus 256. That is 356. So the distance between them is the square root of 356, whatever that is. I don't know what that is because 356 is not a perfect square. So I'm just going to leave my answer as the square root of 356. If I knew what the square root of 356 was, because it was a perfect square, then I would evaluate that. But since 356 is not a perfect square, we're just going to leave it as the square root of 356. Now on to circles. The equation of a circle is the quantity x plus 1 squared plus the quantity y minus 2 squared equals 121. What is the radius of the circle? Well, for us to find the radius of the circle or anything about a circle, we need to know the general form for an equation for a circle, which is what just popped up on the screen here. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where, in this case, if the equation is written in this manner, which in this case it is, hk is going to be the center of that circle if we were to put it on a graph. And r is the radius of that circle, the distance from the center of the circle out to any point on the circle. We are asked to find the radius of the circle, and the radius is on the right-hand side of the equal sign in this case. It's the constant number, So here we're looking at this 121. So this 121 is the key to find the radius of the circle based on the way the equation is written. And this equals the radius squared. 121 is not the radius. 121 is the radius squared. So to find out what the radius is, we have to take the square root of 121, which is 11. And I know that because 121 is a perfect square, and 11 is the square root. So the radius of this circle is 11. Next one, we're asked to find the center of the circle. So another equation, again written in the same format of the general form of an equation for a circle, which is this. Now we're looking for the center, and the center is the HK, and the R is the radius. But we're looking for the center. So the center is located with what we're taking away from the X and what we're taking away from the Y. So to find the center, we are going to look at these two values here, because this is in place of H, this is in place of K. But what we have to make a note of here is that in this formula, or this equation, it's X plus 1. In the general form, it's X minus whatever the H value is. So we want to change this to a negative, but maintain the fact that the equation is adding 1. So what does that mean? I'm going to rewrite this equation like this. X minus negative 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 9. This is the exact same equation as the one we started with. The only difference now is that I have x minus negative 1. Why did I do that? Because it's going to be easier for me to see what the h value is from the general form of the equation for a circle. And minus negative is the same as plus. So these two equations, even though they look different, are exactly the same thing. Now it's easier for me to see the center, because now in place of h is negative 1, and in place of k is positive 1. So the center of this circle is negative 1, 1. That's the center. And the last one, kind of putting all this together. Write the equation for a circle that satisfies the given conditions with the center of 11, negative 2 and a radius of 9. So once again, we need to know the general form of the equation for a circle, which is on the screen again. We are now given a point, or a center. HK is the center. That point is 11, negative 2. That's the center. How do I know that 11, negative 2 is the center? Because it says the center's 11, negative 2. So we're going to take these values and just plug them into the equation. We also know that r is the radius. And we know the radius here, the radius is 9. So the radius is 9. So what I'm going to do at this point is just take this information that I've been given and plug it into the equation for a circle. I'm going to replace this h with 11. I'm going to replace the k with negative 2. And I'm going to replace r with 9. So when I make those replacements, this is what I get. X minus 11 squared plus y minus negative 2 squared equals 9 squared. I can clean this up a little bit, do a little bit of simplification, because I know that minus and negative is the same as plus, and I also know what 9 squared is. So by doing that simplification, I get the equation x minus 11 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 81. And this is our equation for the circle with a center of 11, negative 2 and a radius of 9.